Alright folks, welcome back to the Don's channel. I am the Don Father and I'm about to do a reaction now that wasn't requested, but it's came up. It's a recent video, but an old story, okay? I'm looking forward to doing this. I love doing a lot of historical stuff as well and trying to not only learn for myself but also the audience, share a little bit of history with everyone so we can learn some stuff together and I can put in my opinion on, or my point of view on what I'm seeing, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. This one's the battle that made the Marines. That's the United States Marine Corps, I'm assuming this one. And as I say, this one's actually from Dark Docs. I'm not sure if I've watched any other stuff before, but it popped up and I thought, you know what, that might make a good reaction video, and we can all just, as I say, learn a little bit more together as we go along. I'd say for Marines out there, they already know about it. But for anybody else, it might be a little bit interesting for you all as well as myself. So that's the main purpose of doing it. The link to the original video then will be in the description section below if you want to check that out. And all of our other stuff's there as well. I want to take this opportunity to advertise the merchandise that we're selling. It's Battle Still Rages merch, and it's to raise money for veterans struggling with PTSD and other combat stress related issues. The money raised from that will be getting donated to charities that are helping those veterans that are struggling with those illnesses. So if anybody can afford it, please check it out and purchase as much as you can afford, and that's what will be happening. We'll be donating the proceeds to charities who are doing great work there on the front line, helping those veterans who much need it. So thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share and put the bell on so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Anyway, no more talking. Let's go!
General John J. Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Forces, called the Battle of Belleau Wood, quote, the biggest battle since Appomattox and the most considerable engagement American troops have ever had with a foreign enemy. In June of 1918, as Russia had withdrawn from World War I, Germany relocated thousands of soldiers to France and launched a massive offensive to end the war. But as the German army breached the Western Front and attempted to advance to Paris, it faced fierce resistance from Allied forces. A robust contingent of thousands of American soldiers and Marines arrived to fight the weakened Germans in the Belleau Wood Preserve area, and the first large-scale battle fought by US forces during World War I ensued. Fighting mainly in the dark, with fixed bayonets, poison gas, and hand-to-hand combat amidst harsh wood terrains and overgrown wheat fields, the Marines engaged in savage combat that cemented their place in history as some of the fiercest of warriors.
So far so good, I'm enjoying the introduction to it.
The German advance. In March of 1918, the Germans launched the Ludendorff Offensive, a campaign to attack the Western Front before the United States deployed all their forces during World War I. A peace treaty with the Russians on the Eastern Front had freed up around 50 German divisions. They were now stationed in France and outnumbered the local army. The Germans achieved significant victories during the first weeks, and after the Third Battle of the Aisne in late May, they reached the north bank of the Marne River at Château-Thierry. The enemies were now 59 miles from Paris, and it became a priority to halt their progress. On May 31st, the US forces supported the Senegalese tirailleurs to hold the German advance into Château-Thierry, forcing them to veer towards Vaux and Belleau Wood.
Wow, look at that.
After several fierce confrontations the next day, Château-Thierry and Vaux ultimately fell, and the Germans moved into Belleau Wood, a square-mile game preserve beside a large wheat field. The area suddenly became an immensely strategic point, and US forces were deployed en masse to support British and French troops. The American 2nd Infantry Division was summoned along the Paris-Metz highway. The 9th Infantry Regiment covered the area between the highway and the Marne, while the 6th Marine Regiment covered their left. The 5th Marine and the 23rd Infantry Regiments were put on reserve. Army General James Harbord commanded the Marine Brigade. The Allied forces would then work together to drive the Germans out of Belleau Wood. First attacks. On the evening of June 1st, the German forces pierced through the French lines to the left of the Marines' position. The American 23rd Infantry and the 5th Marine Regiments immediately marched over 10 kilometers to plug the gap in the line. By nightfall the next day, they held a 12-mile front line along the rough terrain with thick bushes. This swift action might have prevented the Germans from marching into Paris.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the Germans set a major offensive through Belleau Wood, hoping to allow other German troops to cross the Marne River. The French had ordered to dig trenches further to the rear, but General Harbord had his men hold their ground instead. The Marines dug shallow fighting positions with their bayonets to target enemies from a prone position. On the afternoon of June 3rd,
they dug shallow fighting positions with their bayonets. So they were obviously carrying light equipment, that the only digging tool that they had was a bayonet. That must have been tough. Not all ground is easy to break up. They could have been hitting rock. Can you imagine how difficult that was? I know they're probably not digging deep, but they're already tired. And obviously a lot of the stuff, as they're saying, you're already having to endure so many things at the very start, like they had mentioned, and then you're having to do that. But they were going to hold that ground no matter what, and that just showed you the desperation in it, that they were digging with bayonets. I find that point quite interesting.
The Germans approached the Marines' location, but the Americans waited until the enemy was 100 yards from them to open fire. The attack proved successful, and the surviving Germans retreated into the forest. However, the demoralized French soldiers kept urging the Americans to retreat, but Captain Lloyd Williams famously exclaimed, quote, "Retreat? Hell, we just got here." Soon, the Marines stood alone, defending the area. At one point, while Captain George Wallace Hamilton and the 49th Company were getting into position, they were surrounded by German machine guns. But Hamilton caught the enemies off guard, capturing the guns and securing them for friendly forces. He was later awarded 2 Distinguished Service Crosses and a Navy Cross for his actions. By June 4th, Major General Omar Bundy of the 2nd Division took command of the U.S. forces. That same day, Intelligence Officer Lieutenant William A. Eddy and 2 men infiltrated German lines and gathered key information. Having undergone heavy casualties, the Germans had dug out a defensive line through BELLEAU Wood. They were also consolidating their machine gun positions and gathering artillery. Though an attack was not imminent, the increasing strength of the German forces raised concerns about a possible advance to Paris. Over the next 2 days, the Americans managed to repel several enemy attacks. The French 167th Division eventually arrived, and the Allies were able to secure 2,000 yards of front.
Wow. That's a lot.
The heart of the battle. On June 6th at 3:45 a.m., the Allies set off an assault against the Germans before they could even launch an attack of their own. The French 167th Division attacked through the left of the Marines' line, while the 1st Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, went for Hill 142 to prevent flanking fire towards the French. The Marines relied on their combat superiority due to their rifle marksmanship. Moreover, the open warfare doctrine of General John J. Pershing mandated fast-moving and aggressive attacks to overwhelm the Germans and push them behind enemy lines. During a German counterattack on Hill 142, Gunnery Sergeant Ernest A. Jansen withstood 12 enemy soldiers by bayoneting 2 of them and forcing the rest to flee. He became the first U.S. Marine to receive the Medal of Honor during World War I. And Machine Gunner Henry Hulbert was also recognized with the Distinguished Service Cross for advancing through enemy fire during the same battle. As the second phase of the attack took off, the Allies failed to scout the woods thoroughly and missed a network of German machine gun nests and artillery. While advancing in waves from the west into the forest through the open wheat field, the 3rd Division, 5th and 6th Marine Battalions stumbled upon German machine gun fire. The 5th Regiment was shredded, while the 6th fought their way into the forest's southern edge. They encountered even more machine gun nests, sharpshooters, and barbed wire, and engaged in hand-to-hand combat.
Wow.
As the Americans were crawling and trying to survive against an implacable German force, 2-time Medal of Honor honoree 1st Sergeant Dan Daly flaunted his bayonet over his head and shouted the famous words, quote, "Come on, you sons of bitches. Do you want to live forever?" The Marines with him stood up and charged back. In the meantime, 2 companies from the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment, crossed 800 yards towards the nearby village of Boresh. Without artillery support, the companies withered at German gunfire coming from the woods. The remaining Marines made their way into the village and bravely expelled the Germans. Despite having captured Hill 142 and gaining a foothold in BELLEAU Wood, the Marines endured crippling losses that day. More than 1,000 men were injured and 222 lost their lives. It was the largest number of casualties suffered by a single American brigade in World War I up to that point. Commanding Officer Major Thomas Holcomb described the feat in a letter to his wife, quote, "The regiment has carried itself with undying glory, but the price was heavy. My battalion did wonderfully. There never was such self-sacrifice, courage, and spirit shown." Taking BELLEAU Wood. With soldiers from the 2nd Regiment of Engineers and the 6th Machine Gun Battalion, the remaining Marines continued to face German forces as they attempted to take BELLEAU Wood. The ensuing confrontations proved increasingly brutal. The trees were heavily splintered with shelling, and loads of deadly wooden splinters and metal shrapnel laid on the ground. The Germans resorted to mustard gas to halt the American advances. Numerous hand-to-hand clashes broke out, using knives, rifle butts, bayonets, and even trench shovels. As Marine and non-commissioned officers fell, junior officers and soldiers took their places. Still, by June 11th, the American forces had secured most of BELLEAU Wood. The Germans fiercely counterattacked 2 days later, attempting to claim their former positions. But the French army unleashed a decisive bombardment that lasted 14 hours, allowing the Marines to dislodge the enemies. The battle would continue for 2 more weeks. The Marines executed a total of 6 planned attacks to expel the Germans. Finally, on June 26th, a final confrontation in the forests cleared BELLEAU Wood of all enemy forces. Major Shearer submitted a report later that day that read, quote, "Wood's now U.S. Marine Corps entirely." Aftermath. The French government renamed the forest Bois de la Brigade de la Marine in honor of the honorable sacrifice from the Marines during that fateful month. And members of the 4th Marine Brigade were awarded the French Croix de Guerre. The battle was an essential step towards the defeat of Germany, but it also proved incredibly brutal. Out of 9,500 American soldiers, about 1,000 were killed in action, and 4,000 were either wounded, gassed, or missing. The 2nd Battalion alone endured 764 casualties out of 900 men. Historian George B. Clark later wrote, quote, "For all intents and purposes, the old warriors of the U.S. Marine Corps were virtually wiped out." Despite its grim outcome, the Battle of BELLEAU Wood recognized the bravery of the Marines and changed the Marine Corps' lore forever, earning their elite fighter reputation and receiving the Devil Dogs moniker by their German counterparts. A German private later testified, quote, "We have Americans opposite us who are terribly reckless fellows." For more epic battles and heroics, subscribe to our channels, and remember to hit the bell icon to get notified when new videos are uploaded. Please also like our video, and tell us in the comments below what you think of the Marines' feats during World War I.
Well, that's the end of the video. What can I say about those terribly reckless fellows? Absolutely incredible. Great leadership as well. Come on, you sons of bitches. Do you want to live forever? That is legendary. Like, we can't take away from the massive loss of life, the carnage, the slaughter. It's terrible, terrible thing. But what they've achieved, that the legend of it will live on forever. History will prove that those men never died in vain. They literally stopped German advances to Paris, dug in. How they were doing it to begin with at the start, bearing in mind the Germans had been there for a while longer before they've arrived. The French are desperate to retreat. The Americans say absolutely no chance, we've only started fighting, there's no way we're retreating now, which is fantastic. But never underestimate the bravery of what those men had to endure, being gassed, getting caught in the barbed wire, fighting hand to hand with rifle butts, trench shovels, bayonets, of course gunfire, machine gun fire. All of that stuff is truly barbaric, but they've endured it and they've pushed on and pushed on. Of course, lost a lot of men. I think they said it was 9,500 men, 1,000 died, over 4,000 wounded or missing, injured or missing. So about 5,000 of that are not coming home the way they left. So that's over half. But the legend of the story remains, and it's there to be heard for all. That video was fantastic. Didn't know too much about it in terms of the American involvement, but if it was not for them, it could have been a different story in terms of Germany's advance to Paris, couldn't it? So they played a huge part in it, and the birth of the name Devil Dogs, which I love today, which is the nickname of the United States Marine Corps, who are always faithful, Semper Fidelis, Semper Fi Marines. Absolutely loved that. I hope you've enjoyed that video. If you didn't know much about that story. I didn't know too much about it. Of course I know quite a bit about the French battles in the First World War, Second World War, but the American involvement in the First World War is not as reported here as much as, of course, the day landings, Normandy, Omaha, etc. Is what you would have heard for the Second World War, which is quite interesting. And of course in that one showed you how much of a major part they played in helping the Allied forces liberate France and push back and defeat the Germans in that area. Hope you've enjoyed the video. As I said, please check out more of their stuff, because they've already suggested another couple that I might want to actually take a look at. Not too sure if I'm going to react to them, but I'll take a look at. Dark Ducks they're called. The link to that original video anyway will be in the description section below. So will all of our other stuff. Like I said, do check out the merchandise, follow us on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And if you'd like a personalised video request and shout out, check out our Patreon account and how you can do that, or simply join the channel as a member and get your request through that way. Thanks very much. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share, and put the bell on so you don't miss any of our future uploads. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I am the Dawn Father, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.